want to thank Steve Watterson for preaching last week while Shirley and I were gone. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, he's sick. And I'll have to tell him later, but I appreciate him covering. We were camping with some friends of ours from the Adventist Horsemen's Association. One afternoon, I think it was Sunday, we were dismounting after a long, long ride. And if you've ridden, you know your hips get tired, your knees get tired. And Shirley was having a hard time getting her leg over the saddle and get off. And she says, "Give me a little shove. I'll give my leg over there." Yeah, that's what I gave a little too much of a shove. Pushed her out of the saddle and she fell down and thought she broke her wrist. I think she just sprained it and hit her kidney. And she has kidney stone problems.
Oh, man.
And now I think she hit a kidney and now a kidney stone's moving, so she's home with pains. Anyway, started well. It didn't end so well for the weekend. It was good to be away and camp with some good friends. I was at one of the first churches that I haven't been in a lot of different churches, but one of the first I was at as associate pastor. When I first got there, a couple months into the time that I was there, a gentleman came to me and he said, "Pastor Greg, I want you to teach me how to pray." And I laughed at him. I thought it was a joke. You know, what's the punchline? And I really felt bad because he was serious. He said, no. He says, I need you to teach me how to pray. I just assumed everybody knows how to pray. It's talking, right? Prayer is talking to God, but there's a fear in prayer, praying in front of people. And he had this fear and he just needed some help. And so it was a privilege and it was an honor. I was humbled, think that the guy would come and say, "Teach me." I didn't know where to start. I mean, I had never thought about it. It's just talking. And so we worked through it, and I hope that it was beneficial. But that's what happened to Jesus. The disciples came and said to him, "Teach us how to pray." And so here we're into our third of a series on the Lord's Prayer. What is the lesson? What is the teaching? What is God wanting to teach us in that Lord's Prayer? How can we learn from that? And so we've looked at the Father. Who is our Father, and what is He wanting to communicate to us? So here this morning we're going to talk about heaven. Our Father which art in heaven. So when you think of heaven, what do you think about as far as accessibility, distance? Is heaven close by or a long ways away?
Far away.
Far away. It's a long. And does God dwell in our hearts or in heaven?
Oh.
It's confusing. Of course He dwells in our hearts, but He's in heaven. And so there's all of these things we kind of, well, yeah, I know He's here, but He's there. We struggle sometimes with trying to process those things and put them all together, and how does it work? And heaven, it's just a long ways away. Can God hear me when I pray if He's in heaven?
Yes.
Does He really know who I am? Does He know my name? Does He listen to me? Does God care about me? I mean, He's a long ways away. Does He care about me? And so I don't know if you've actually thought about it, processed it, or maybe sometimes it's just one of those subtle little feelings that you have you never really verbalize or put together, but you wonder sometimes if God really hears when you talk to Him. Or is it just a self-therapy thing? Is it just a motion we go through to make ourselves feel good? And I've told you before, over and over, I'll keep telling you, I'm a visual person. I just have to picture what I'm reading, what I'm thinking. I try and draw pictures and visualize what it's like. And when I'm praying, I get the same feeling maybe a lot of you have, I don't know. I do get the feeling that I'm just talking to myself in my room, just bouncing around in the walls there. And I have to stop and visualize that when I start to pray, God God looks at me. I visualize him looking and focusing on me and listening. And I have to remind myself there really is a God in heaven who really listens to me and sees me. It's not just a story in the Bible. Right now in heaven, Jesus Christ is there interceding for us. And this morning he's looking down and he can see us and he can communicate. I hope that's not disrespectful. But I mean, I'm trying to just communicate with you. God is alive and he's there and he sees us. And you can wave. Good morning, Jesus. Happy Sabbath. Sabbath for us, but it may not be Sabbath elsewhere around the globe as time changes. He's real. It's a real place, and there's a real God who loves us there, listening to us. This morning, we're going to look at heaven. What is heaven? Well, Isaiah tells us, God speaking. Thus says the Lord. This is God communicating to you and I this morning through Isaiah, who recorded it down for us. God says, heaven is my throne. Heaven's my throne. That's where I dwell, God says. That's where my throne is. And the earth is my footstool. What is the house that you would build for me? And what is the place of my rest? All these things my hand has made. And so these things these things came to be as well. What are these things? When God is speaking to Isaiah, trying to communicate to him, he's saying, my throne is in heaven. The earth is my footstool. What kind of house can you build for me that would contain me? What kind of a house can you build that would impress me? These things. And what is God referring to when he says these things? Take a guess. Where is he looking and where does he wave his hand? What is he talking about? It could be a variety of things. There's not a right or wrong answer. I'm just saying when God is communicating to us this morning, he's talking and saying, where's the place of my rest? All these things my hand has made. Yeah, this building? Who made this?
God.
Man. I should have put a whole bunch of slides. I'm just thinking of it now. I should have put a bunch of slides of our solar system. Probably one of my favorite pictures, the Horsehead Nebula in Orion. Incredible, beautiful, massive size, trillions of light years across, in colors and shapes. Gorgeous, gorgeous places out in the universe. Incredible size and dimension and beauty and power generating. And God waves his hand and says, I made all of this. I made all of this. What is it that can contain me? What can you build that would impress me? Look at what I've made to impress you. You know, as human beings, God is just trying to put it into perspective that we would understand who he is. He does ask us to build a sanctuary, that we might come and worship together, to be in his presence. He does ask us to build it beautiful and to make it comfortable and efficient. And that's why we have a building project to make some improvements here, to be more efficient in our ministry. But God is saying, all of these things I made. My home is in heaven. My throne is in heaven. And all the vastness of the cosmos, it serves me. It surrounds me. It glorifies me. Jesus goes on then to try and help his disciples understand a little bit about heaven. What is this heaven place that he's talking about? And so he begins to talk to his disciples in John 14, 1-3. He says, let not your heart be troubled. You've probably memorized this. You know this one. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many what?
Mansions.
Do you have a mansion? Some of you do. You have a chicken mansion. That's the name. They've got a chicken mansion. you know what? These mansions in heaven, they're incredible. Jesus says, I have many mansions. Now, when I look at these pictures, you can go on NASA or what's that satellite, the Hubble Space Telescope. You can look at these pictures, they're incredible, beautiful. And the mansions that God has prepared are even going to be more beautiful. He has prepared mansions. If it was not so, this is Jesus talking to us. Jesus who was resurrected from the dead. He is now in heaven. He says, if it wasn't so, I would have told you. It is so. And I'm going to prepare a place for you. And I will come again, receiving you myself. And where I am, there you may be also. And the hearers, the listeners, begin to think. Their mind began to wander. Because they lived in some very, very humble abodes. Their house was nothing more than a structure of rock. Flat rocks piled up underneath that roof in some cases, maybe an adobe roof or adobe walls. But often it was a one room, at most maybe 2 rooms. And the bed was nothing more than a raised pile of rocks, flat, with some blankets, maybe some plants down there for bedding or something, maybe some robes or different things. It was very, very humble, very, very simple. That's what the people listening here lived in. And maybe they had walked by and they saw from a distance, they could see the temple and they could see how glorious it was on the outside. They'd heard about the inside, but they hadn't been to the inside. But they heard it was glorious. Or maybe they'd seen Herod's temple, this incredible building there in Jerusalem. But they hadn't been inside of Herod's temple. Their minds could only wander with imagination as they tried to picture what Jesus was saying. That I have for you a mansion. And their minds just begin to explore a mansion in heaven. Are you talking to me, Jesus? Me? Really? You got a place like that for me? Heaven is incredible. It has your name on it and your address. It's a place for you and I. It's not just some figment of imagination. It is a dwelling place that God is preparing to take us to. And so, you know, as I slipped through my slides this morning, I have different illustrations. You know, people are trying to, in some way, draw a picture, paint a picture to illustrate what heaven looks like. I don't know what picture you've got of heaven. But artists have just tried their best to picture that. I was at a seminar with somebody one time, and they were taking us through an exercise. And so they had a big whiteboard, and they were writing on it. They said, okay, folks, let's picture what heaven is going to look like. But first off, we can only think of heaven in reference to this earth, right? And so let's think of the earth and all the things that we have around us and the things that are around us that we will not need in heaven. And we started to list them. What kind of things will we not need in heaven that we have around us? What? Cars. We're not going to need cars. Or door locks. Well, you're not going to need door locks because you're not going to need doors. Light bulbs. God is our light. You don't need doors because you're not afraid of anybody. You don't have to lock them out, and the weather's pleasant. What else don't you need?
Cell phones.
Kleenex.
Kleenex.
Dishwashers. Degrees. You're counting on that one. That's all you're thinking about now is school, and tests, and exams, and degrees. But what's that degree going to get you? What are you going to do with your degree? Huh? Surgery, eyes, fix people, right? You're going to be a physician. You're going to take care of people. What are we going to need of physicians in heaven? Nothing. Can not going to need hospitals. There's no ambulances. You're not going to need roads. There's no fear, no buildings. And so you go through this exercise, and you go, and you just, everything around us. Yes?
You need roads for streets of gold.
Strive, man, thank you. That's right. There will be a street of gold to walk on. That's right. Good point. But think of all the things, the stores, the factories. You don't need them. And when you're all through, what do you have left? You have a garden, nature. And then God says, in his dwelling place. Oh, it just goes on and on. These incredible pictures. But I guess we're we've got a problem. We don't have the ability to even begin to imagine what God has in store. And so he tells us that in 1 Corinthians. Eye has not seen. He says, there's not a thing on this earth that you can look at that begins to compare with what he has in store. You haven't heard anything be described. You haven't heard about the inside of the temple or whatever. He says, yeah, you've heard, but that doesn't begin to describe what heaven is like. Your imagination says, enter into the heart of man, that imagination. You can't even begin to imagine all the things that God has prepared for us. God has wonderful, wonderful things in store for us. And so you might let your mind wander, things that are meaningful to you and speak to your heart. But whatever it is that you picture of heaven, it does not begin to compare. Some of the Adventists are blessed in a number of ways, and those blessings come with a responsibility, don't they? We're not blessed for our own goodness. The blessings are there to share with others and to encourage others. And one of the blessings we have has been strong, solid, Bible-believing pioneers of the church that have paved the way for us. And man, they've just done some great things. And they've written some good counsel and good advice. And one of those individuals, Ellen White, God had given her an incredible gift. And that was a gift of ministry. That through her, she ministered and gave words of hope and encouragement and counsel as this church was growing and building. One of the things God did one time was give her a vision of heaven. And in this vision, she joined, her angel took her, and she was in heaven and was walking around, and she was seeing things. And if you have the book Early Writings, she records that vision. And she tries to describe it. And as you read it, it kind of gives you this little picture, this glimpse. And she acknowledges there are not words sufficient to describe the things that she saw. There just is not language to describe. Take your young child and show them some scientific problem, project, mathematical formula. Show them some physics concept and say, now write down what it was you saw. They don't possess the ability to do so. It's beyond them. We do not have the words, the ability to share with others the things that God has in store for us. Well, John had a vision also, and he saw this holy city come down in Revelation 21. Describes quite a bit about heaven. You see, because the Bible tells us that when Jesus Christ comes at his second coming, what's going to happen to the wicked who are alive at the second coming?
They'll be slain.
They're going to be killed, the Bible says. They're going to be killed, they're going to die, they're going to be dead. But what happens to the people who are in the grave that are the redeemed?
They'll be resurrected.
They're going to be resurrected. What happens to those who are alive that God will redeem? At the second coming, the dead in Christ will be raised, and those in Christ who are alive will be
Caught up in the air.
in the air. be with the Lord forevermore. God takes him, says, and takes us to his heavenly home. For how long?
Forever.
For 1,000 years. So you go back to Revelation, and it begins to tell us about what happens at the end of that 1,000 years. And it tells us that we come back down to this earth. And here we find this description. I saw this holy city, the New Jerusalem, heaven itself. Remember the verse in Isaiah? Heaven is my throne. Where Jesus sits, that is heaven. He sees the throne of God, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for the husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men. Tabernacle, this dwelling, the presence. God's presence will now be with men. And they shall be his people. God himself will be with them, and he will be their God. Something incredible happens at the end of this 1,000-year time period. God transfers the center of the universe, his throne, his capital, is transferred from what we call heaven now, and it comes down to this earth. And earth becomes the dwelling place of God. Earth becomes this throne room for God. If you've read your Bible, you're familiar with what the book of John says about the dimensions of this city that John sees coming down. And what are the dimensions? Well, let me give you the verse, and then we'll go, and I'll show you the size and the dimensions. For the Lord himself is going to descend from heaven with a shout. We talked about this in the Lord. It just says that we're caught up in the clouds to be with the Lord. But when the city comes down, here's what it's going to look like. Not very exciting, is it? What is it? It's an artist's concept of what the New Jerusalem is going to look like coming down from heaven to this earth. A big cube. Not very interesting. Remember, we just got through reading where it says, your mind can't even begin to imagine this incredible glory of this heaven, New Jerusalem, God's dwelling place. Remember, we're talking about the Lord's Prayer. We're praying to our Father who is in heaven. What's it look? It just doesn't speak to me. It doesn't do anything for me. This big cube. Our mind does not have the ability to comprehend what God is trying to tell us and what he's trying to describe to us. And so we just have to kind of begin to look at it. We're going to look at some verses that give this description, but as I'm reading this verse, here's what this city looks like. It happens to be 12,000 furlongs, 1,500 miles on either side, square. And it is as tall as it is wide. It's a cube, as the Bible describes it. Same dimensions. Width, breadth, and height. 1,500 miles. That's what it would look like sitting on the United States. And different ways of looking and visualizing it here. Big, big, big. 2 million square miles. Big. Not very interesting. If you just take it and look at it and say it's just a cube. And so artists have begun to try, well, maybe it's square, but it's got rooms and buildings and things that maybe it's just saying that the highest point is 1,500 miles. It makes sense to me. It could be. Goes on to describe some of the not only just the dimensions, but what the building looks like. It's a long passage, so much longer that I can't put it on screen, so you're going to have to take your Bibles and turn to Revelation chapter 21. And let's look at something here. Revelation 21, we're going to look at verse 18 onward. The foundations of this city. Remember, we're looking at the city and these dimensions. And it says, the foundation of the wall of the city was ordained with all kinds of precious stones. Jasper, sapphire, chalcedony, and emerald, and on and on. All these different stones. 12 gates. And then verse 22. And there was no temple in it. Wait a minute. Isn't that what the city is? The temple of God? The throne of God? But he says, at this point, he says, I don't see any temple. I don't see any temple in it, for the Lord God and the Lamb are the temple. And the city has no need of sun or of the moon to shine, for the glory of the Lord illuminated it, and the Lamb is its light. Hard to imagine the colors. These are some of the gems that were mentioned there that we're looking at. Crystal clear, and yet having color, and imagining that inside that city, there's no need for artificial light because the light of God's light, His presence, radiates out. And so you might look back and just picture the foundations, these levels of foundation, being these different stones and these different colors. But from the inside of the city, this penetrating light shooting out through those. And it's like this penetrating rainbow of color that just shoots out through the universe. The city, if it were 1,500 miles high, it is so tall that you would have to be, well, you'd have to be 10 miles away just to be able to look up and see the buildings. Like the Empire State Building, have you ever been there? Stand in the street and look up, you can't see anything. It might be a tall building, you'd never know it until you get to the edge of town, and then you look up, oh, now you can see it. You'd have to be 160,000 miles away from the New Jerusalem to look at it and see it all enclosed in the full scope of the city. It's just big, it's massive, it's beautiful, it's got colors that are beyond comprehension. So back here to Revelation again, we're still looking at that. Revelation chapter 22. And he showed me, verse 1, a pure river of water. He showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding from the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the middle of the street, and on either side of the river, was the tree of life, which bore 12 fruits, and yielding the fruit every month. The leaves of the tree for the healing of the nations. On and on and on. Here was this incredible picture. There's a throne of God, and from that throne was this river that is proceeding out. Well, that's a terrible picture, but it's the best. Some city, some way to picture that city. Here's this river of life. And we don't have the ability to comprehend the picture. And yet God gives us little glimpses to help us to try and understand. Why do you think God is moving His capital, His universe down here to this earth? Why is He transferring it here? This incredible, this glorious place, from wherever He is out there at this point, transferring down here, His dwelling place will be with man. God is love. Why is He doing it? It's hard to know. I mean, God hasn't told us why. But God is a God of love. And He loves us. And He has asked us to endure something that He's not asked of any other race or people or creation, and that is to endure the trials of sin. We have to face sin. We have to deal with it. We've been challenged with this. We're in the middle of this battle, and God says, hold on and be faithful. And as you read Revelation chapter 3 there, it says, to those that overcome, those who are faithful and overcome, hold on to God. The reward that he gives us is going to be that we get to dwell with him. And we don't have to travel somewhere. In the end, he comes back down here. Here was where the battle was. Here is where the contest was settled. Is God faithful and true? Is he trustworthy? Is he honest? Here, the question was settled. Here with mankind. And the reward that he brings to us is that he makes us sons and daughters. And he opens up his home and says, my home is your home. And he brings us into his mansion, gives us rooms. Isaiah says that not only do we have a home in this palace of his, but that we can go out and in the beautiful recreated earth, that we can build another home. And I don't picture it being sticks and boards and plaster and things like we have now. But we can have our dwelling. Maybe it would be a tree house of some sort, or whatever it is that is meaningful to you. Picture that until we get there and find out what it's really going to be. But God has something incredible and glorious for us. Heaven is where God dwells. Not only does God dwell in heaven, but he dwells in our heart. We can enter into that relationship with God right now. We can be part of that relationship. Joni Erickson Tada tells a story. She was a young lady that years ago was in a swimming accident, was paralyzed. She was a quadriplegic. But through all of the trial and the difficulty, she came to the place she recognized that God left her crippled so that she could do ministry to others who have disabilities. And one of her camps, one of her summer camps that she was doing, she was ministering to others with disability. And at the end of this week, they had this camp with incredible activities and fun times. And it was wonderful. And she gave the kids that were there, she gave them an opportunity to get up and share at the end of the week what that camp meant to them that week. And one of the counselor's favorites kids there was Jeff. They call him little Jeffrey. He was a Down syndrome kid, and he raised his hand. He wanted to share, and he got up to the microphone, and they were all waiting for him to tell the favorite thing that he enjoyed about camp. He took his mic and he said, he said, it was all fun, but I miss my daddy, and I want to go home. And she wrote that in one of her books. She says, oh, isn't that the truth? That this world, there's some good things here. But I want to go home. We want to go home. Listen to this song about going home. You see what God is trying to communicate to us. Jesus, as he begins to teach us this prayer, is that you and I are praying to our Father who is in heaven, a long ways away. But that's a prayer that we lift up to a God who loves us. And the strongest desire of that Father is to dwell with us. And not only does he want us to be in his presence, he loves us so much, he says, wait. I will bring my presence to you. And he comes to us and he dwells in our heart right now. And he says, not only will I dwell with you in your heart, but I will bring everything I have and I will come and I will dwell with you. God loves us. When you pray, picture a Father who loves you and desires you and I to be. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your love for us. Thank you that this incredible promise that you are making a mansion for us, that you are preparing not only to draw us into your presence, but to come dwell with us through eternity. Oh, we look forward to that. Lord, forgive us for our hearts that wander away. Our desire today is to turn back to you, to make that commitment once more, to serve, to obey, to faithfully follow you is our prayer in Jesus' name. Go with us, Father, and bless us in the hours of the Sabbath. We pray in the name of Jesus.